Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly. I'm a mixed media artist who specializes in gouache paint, ink work, and sometimes I do digital painting. If you saw last week's video, you probably recognize this beautiful possum, so let's just do a brief recap. In the last week's video, I went over an assignment I had my students do in an advanced painting class that I teach, and the premise was that we had to select words from 4 different categories, which were verbs, vibes, things, and colors. And we had to select 3 to 5 slips of paper from at least 2 different categories and create an illustration depicting those words. And my words were screaming, pastels, and idealist. In last week's video, I went over the underpainting part of this whole painting and the first layer of gouache paint. And in this video, I'll just be layering up those paint layers and describing to you my process and little things I learned along the way. So right here, I just have a damp brush. It's a little more wet actually, and I'm just going in and blending out some of those choppier gradients of color that I placed in the color blocking stage. I'm also getting a wet brush, and I previously placed orange watercolor pencils where the rose-colored glasses are going to be, the lenses, and I'm just reactivating that watercolor pencil so that it's a wash of paint rather than colored pencil. I don't want that texture there, I want it to be very smooth. So I just blended that into the gouache layers of the possum fur underneath. I'm just generally going around also like in parts like the tongue, the fur around the neck, and blending those out so they look a little more neat. And I tend to push and pull the paint a little bit in areas where there might be some more texture needed. I just get a damp brush, so a brush that is lightly wet but mostly dry, and I use that kind of a brush to create more texture in the fur. I did that a lot in the fur that can be seen behind the rose-colored glasses because I didn't want to add straight up like white paint or like too bright of a color of cream. For a lot of the fur behind the lenses, I just smudged and flicked out some fur texture. So once I had the basic form of the overall mass and contours of the possum's fur, how it's shaped around its body and face, once I have that established, I'm going in with I would call this more like a pinstriping brush. It's not super thin, but it creates even streamlined strokes of paint. And I'm going around the face where there's going to be more of that highlighted fur catching some light as it goes down the side of the mouth. I'm also going back in and reintroducing some more gray colors around the neck because on the forehead, around the heart-shaped little cute pattern on the forehead and around the neck and back, there's more gray fur patterns. But I want to make a note that I'm not yet going in with super fine of detail. I'm saving that more for the end. I am slowly getting more detailed, but I'm making sure that I'm keeping the form, and I'll go over that later in deeper detail. So in general, throughout this process, right here, I'm just adding more shadows and highlights in areas where it needs to be pushed. So the light source is like right above the possum. You can see that big shadow that the what do you call that? The upper jaw of the possum's snout is dropping like a really big shadow. You can see where the light source is, and the highlight on the nose is very much in the center and like right on top. And I obviously, for the reference, photoshopped in these heart-shaped glasses because I don't know many people who are putting heart-shaped glasses on possums. If you got an Instagram, that's my kind of content. Anyways, I photoshopped that in, and the glasses, if they were really there, they would have a higher point of highlight on the top portion of the rims of the glasses. So I just went in and carved that out, and I left a little bit of that red behind to create more thickness to the frames of the glasses. I also made a cute little rounded drop shadow from the nose because their noses they go out a little bit, and it just creates this cute little rounded shadow underneath. given that one of the words that I selected was pastels, I really made an effort to give this more of a rosy appearance. It's not super obvious, but in the underpainting, I used a lot of yellows, oranges, and purples for the highlights, midtones, and shadows just to map it out. So when you look in areas like the ears where there's a lot more like black and darker shadows going on, there's a lot more purple incorporated. I also really tried to make it an effort to make the pink like baby pink wherever I could, like on the nose and the mouth. I also really tried to let those pastel tones just peek through where the colors transition with each other. So now I'm in the fun stage, is what I'd like to call it, when you have a decent layer of gouache going on and it's really starting to seem like it's popping off the page, and you can go in and do slightly more detailed work. So I'm going into all those little ear canal little grooves in the possum's ears, and I'm slowly and gradually creating higher points of highlight. So I built up more of that lavender tone to show the grooves in the possum's ears, and because the possum's ear skin is a lot more shiny, I made a very high point of highlight along the ridges and where it would catch a lot more light and make more of a singular spot of highlight where it's very reflective. I briefly want to mention, while I'm working on this ear, building up those purpley tones, that I'm going to be adding more to this painting. It's not just going to be the possum. I plan on doing those little Valentine's Day heart candies, and I'm going to have a lot of little sayings written on the hearts, like ah, like screaming, and I'm gonna have one that says trash and just other things like that. I want this to be very like romanticized looking. I took the word idealist in somewhat of a different direction, where I came up with the metaphor of seeing the life through rose-colored glasses. So that's the whole premise of this. I'm also going to incorporate some ladybugs because I like including bugs and stuff, specifically spiders. I might hide a spider in here, not gonna lie. But I figured ladybugs would be appropriate because it'd be like a love bug, you know, and I might make the spots little hearts. And it's getting close to Valentine's Day, so this was all a happy accident. So then next, I decided I'm just refining some minor details here and there. And when I get to that point where I'm like, this seems good enough in this stage, but something seems to be lacking in other areas of the painting, and I felt like that was the fur around the neck. It was seemingly a little too splotchy. I wanted it to trail off into watercolor like a little bit, but not too much. There's going to be a frame of other crap around it later anyway, so whatever, but I really wanted to build up more of that fur thickness and opacity. So I just went in, incorporated more white and gray around that area. There's also some shadows that are being cast on the side of the possum's face from the sunglasses, and I blended that down because the further away from the glasses, the more I wanted it to like fade out, and the closer the shadow is to the actual frames of the glasses, I enhanced that shadow and made it really dark where the frames are actually touching the possum's snout. So then after doing that, I decided to pay a lot more attention to the frames themselves. I wanted these heart-shaped glasses to read as very plasticky and almost Barbie-like, so I put a very high point of highlight where on the bottom part of the frames, where that edge would stick out a little bit and catch a little bit of that light. It's just the smallest little line, but it really makes a huge difference on showing the dimension and thickness of something. And I'm bringing that high point of highlight, of course, on the top of the glasses where it's going to be catching most of the light, as well as that little nose bridge piece in the center. And I didn't really use any black or anything with gray or black in it to shade these. I literally just used red because I felt like if I used gray, it would wash. This is such a delicate color that if I used black, it would wash it out. It wouldn't look as pastel-y, you know what I mean? So I used red as the shadows for this light pink set of glasses. I adjust these highlights quite a bit, so I did like a general highlight so that there would be a gradient where it's lighter on the top to bottom. And then I went back in and with literally just gouache paint, no water or anything, I did the thinnest little line of highlight around the curves on the top of the frames. And it's just little details like that are just like chef's kiss, just the cherry on top, you know? And it makes it really pop and sharpens the image and makes it look like it has so much more dimension. I also adjusted the shadow quite a bit because if you look at references of people with tinted sunglasses on and direct light hitting them, you can actually see the color from the glasses reflected through the shadow, not only with the lenses casting that color on your face, but also the shadow itself would be a lot more warm. And I added an orange watercolor pencil to just kind of even that out. I brought that watercolor pencil down on the fur where the shadow is being cast, and I made it lighter than the tint on the glasses, so there's some separation, but it still looks more orange compared to the rest of the fur. It just really gives that illusion that this is a shadow being cast on his face. Why did I just gender the possum? Listen, I don't know. I haven't named this possum yet. If you guys, by the way, if you guys have any ideas for the name of this possum, the last one I did, her name was Darla. This one, I'm really torn. My students thought maybe Meredith, Irene, you know, things like that. One of my students said Possum John, like Elton John, and I really like that. I really like that. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Possums have, I don't know if they all have this, but a lot of them have generally really dark ears, like almost black, and then the tips of their ears have like little peach patches of skin, and I think that's really cute. And I wanted to make that pastel pink too, more cream, not so pink, but you know, the undertone of pink, whatever. And I just put that there and made some highlights so it's obvious that the actual color of the ear itself is that color. It's not just like a weird highlight going on. Alright, this is the fun part where I get to get my super tiny brush and I get to put in lots of tiny fur. And since I have a really good base and form for all of the fur, I can now go in and put individual little hairs wherever I want. I'm straight up just using white for this because I precisely made the base layer of the fur to be more cream. That way when I did go in and put in white, there's a lot more contrast. You can see the texture a lot more. And I put little stray hairs around the forehead and around the neck. And later on, not in this video, I know. The best part is doing the whiskers because it's so satisfying. It is just, it's like so satisfying, but that's not going to be until next video because my camera ran out of storage, and that's going to have to be for next video. So sorry about that, but for now, this is what I have. I went back in and kind of altered the shape of how the fur was going in because sometimes when you add a lot of stray hairs, it can get a little crazy. You can lose the shape you originally had, so. Okay, so I regret doing this. It's not a big deal. I was able to fix it, but I was like, well, there's gonna be a high point of highlight on the lenses, right? And no, I just don't think that needed to be there. I think it really distracted from the possum's eyes, and I just don't think that needed to happen. I also had the thought, hey, I can go in with my trusty pan pastels and just do a highlight with those so I don't have to mess up all the gouache paint I just did. But, you know, I was too lazy to get up, so what did I do? I created more work for myself by having to fix this later. So I tried moving around that highlight like, oh, it'd be in the center more. But really, I looked at a lot of references on sunglasses, and because that ledge is there and the glasses, like the frames, are getting a lot more of the light, it wouldn't necessarily get that reflection. And if I were to put in a reflection, it would be very sharp. It would be very sharp, and it wouldn't be this gradual situation going on, you know? So I decided, you know what, I'm not about to paint like a window reflection or spotlight reflection in these lenses, so I just had to erase that entirely and put in more of that orange watercolor pencil and fix it. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think honestly I might just leave it alone, let it just be the way it is, but kind of mad at myself, but it's okay. Anything can be, especially with gouache, anything can be fixed. Like, truly, I am a firm believer in that, so I'm not that worried about it. I'm just like annoyed that I didn't just try, because pastels are erasable on gouache too, so I don't know why I decided to make this harder on myself, all because I didn't want to get up, go to my craft drawer. You know, you live and you learn. Live, laugh, love. You know, I'm not living, laughing, or loving right now, but it's alright. So I hope that this video was at least informative and maybe entertaining. I don't know. I like talking about the process a lot, and I think it can be very helpful just listening to someone as they work. Anyways, I will see you guys in next week's video. Bye!